Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. There's something super scary about a good, well-trained drill sergeant voice. I'm not surprised Karen ran for the hills. I would too. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. That time a Karen thought an Army cadet worked at McDonald's. Some background. At the time of this incident, summer 2014, I was 14. I was a member of the Army Cadets here in the UK. I was traveling back from a weekend camp with a group of about 35 cadets and 6 adults. On this particular camp, I'd completed a 48-hour fieldcraft exercise, including mock attacks, creating a camp, setting and defending from ambushes, and a 9-ish mile hike in full kit with Bergen and rifle. Out of the previous 72 hours, I'd slept for maybe 3 and consumed so much caffeine at one point I could hear my eyeballs moving. While on the coach home, my friend had doodled on my arm, so I had some quite intricate patterning visible on my hand when I rolled my sleeves down. After about 3 hours on the bus, we stopped at some services for food and a toilet break. Important note, I was dressed in my full cadet uniform, which was camouflage, combats, and smock, and shiny black boots complete with rank slide and beret. Cast. EM, Karen, me, a very tired cadet just wanting food, Staff Sergeant, the most senior adult on the coach home, a large, balding man with a very deep, booming voice and a heart of gold. Sarah, the most senior cadet on the coach, a short, slim female who was the most aggressive person I've ever met. The story. So there I was, the picture of an exhausted teenager, stood with my friend in front of the pricing board for the McDonald's in the service station, trying to marshal my brain to do the maths to work out how much what I wanted was going to cost, surrounded by people dressed the same as me in a similar state of exhaustion. I can vaguely hear someone complaining about all these people in the strident, petulant tones of a wild Karen, when all of a sudden the crowd parts like a shoal of fish in front of a roaming shark, leaving only me in the way. I feel a hand grab my shoulder and wrench me around then. EM, I want 2 Big Mac meals with chocolate shakes and a chicken nugget Happy Meal with milk. Me. What? I realize that I'm standing in front of the prices and step to one side, mumbling an apology and going back to counting my money. The EM grabs me again and this time shouts at me. EM, are you stupid? I said I want 2 Big Mac meals with chocolate shakes and a chicken nugget Happy Meal with milk. I stare at her blankly and say, I'm not stupid. I don't work here. EM, I don't care. Get me my food now. At this point, I just kind of lose it. Miss, I don't know who the F you think you're talking to, but don't you think it's a bit weird how the workers wear gray and I'm wearing camo? And you know I've got drawings all over my arm? Or is your head so far up your butt you can't tell the difference? Now, I've had an exhausting weekend and I'm going to get my food. If you touch me again, I will defend myself. All the shouting had attracted the attention of Sarah. Sarah, OP, what's going on here? Me, I don't bloody know, Sergeant. I point to EM. This woman just grabbed me and yelled at me, so I yelled back. I just want my food. Sarah nodded, then gestured me towards the ordering counter. Sarah, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from my cadets. Sarah placed herself between me and EM. EM now loses her mind and goes into a screaming fit, yelling about disrespect and duty. Sarah, not to be outdone, begins shouting back about how EM should respect the cadets, and her staff sergeant, who shouted loud enough that I could feel it through the floor. Staff Sergeant, enough! Sergeant Sarah, go order your food now. He wheeled to EM, who was shocked into silence. As for you, I suggest you wait elsewhere until we are all gone. EM, but I'm the Staff Sergeant, I saw everything. Now leave. EM scurries off, and that's the end of it. Staff Sergeant and Sarah both checked if I was okay and then left me to my meal. Okay, sometimes I understand a mix-up, but what McDonald's employee wears camouflage on the job? And our next story. You're the boss? Okay, you're the boss. I just found out my old boss was fired and remembered a story and thought I'd share this multiple malicious compliance with you guys. So back in 2021, I was working from home with a team of about 20 people in my department. To summarize, our job was monitor credit cards. We worked pretty independently and efficiently, so the company to award this literally promoted the entire department and tripled our pay. And with this, they emphasized that we should be more independent, take more responsibility and all that, and everyone was super okay with it. But then 6 months later, as every story on this sub goes, there was a change in management. The manager took a job at another bank, and our supervisor was fired for doing the deed in company grounds. Pretty cool guy, but terrible choosing where to have sex. The new manager was pretty competent. As far as I know, she's still in the position. The problem was the new supervisor to our department, aka best friend of new manager. He came into the job knowing absolutely zero about what we did and immediately wanted to demand results, but then again, he knew nothing about what we did, so he would demand results in the wrong places. Always asking for overtime even when we didn't need, complaining about how we didn't use formal language on the group chat, and so on. One relevant thing he learned on his first week is that I was supposed to take his job before he came along. My old supervisor was training me to take his job because he was about to leave anyway, and everyone on my team came to me when they needed something, be it help with a demand or advice on something work-related, and he was quick to remind me of that as he asked me to hop on a call with him and reminded me he was the boss. He told me if anyone asked me for something to tell them to go to him. I said, okay. This backfired very quickly. Since he didn't know anything about what we did, he didn't know how to help all the people coming to him. After a few days, he stopped asking him since he could never help and came back to me again. Then again, he told me to hop in a call with him, and his new strategy was to, whenever someone asked him something, he would then ask me so he could tell them. Again, I said okay. After a month of this, our production was at the lowest it had been in 3 years. But he was happy since everyone was going to him and getting, albeit longer, responses. So he had to look somewhere else to cause intrigue. He started to bicker on when people took their breaks. Our journey was 8 hours a day with 3 breaks, 2 10-minute breaks, and an hour break. Everyone had their time to go to these breaks, but since it didn't impact our job in the slightest, everyone just went when it was most convenient for them. All my colleagues started complaining to me that was busting their balls for this until came my time. He went on a 10-minute rant on why I shouldn't take my 1-hour break 30 minutes before I was supposed to. I told him it was because I went to a bakery close to my house every day because I was tired to make dinner, and he to take my break 30 minutes early, otherwise it would be closed. He said if I wanted to go to the bakery, I should go on my own personal time when I'm off the clock. I said okay. But what he said gave me an idea for me to go on my own personal time. As per company code, besides those 1 hour and 20 minutes of break, you had up to 1 hour of personal break per day, in which you can take whenever you need for whichever personal reason. I told my colleagues this, and every day, 1 hour before my 1 hour break, I would take 1 hour of personal break and go to the bakery and buy my lunch. My colleagues would do similar things that they needed to do during the time they were used to take their breaks. Well, 2 months later, the entire department was terminated since we weren't bringing enough revenue to the company. Unfortunately, the supervisor wasn't let go until last week, and the department he took over also was terminated. And another disclaimer to anyone worried about 20 people lost their jobs. We have a pretty niche set of skills, and everyone quickly found jobs of similar paying wages. No one was sad to be fired. We were actually pretty happy. A few even resigned before the ship sunk. And our last story. At first, I wanted to dissolve the HOA, but then... I live in a small 30-home subdivision with nice 2-story homes. When we moved into the neighborhood, the HOA was inactive. One retired and grumpy neighbor decided he would have it reactivated about a year ago. The HOA had its first and only meeting in March of 2017. There was definitely concerns at the meeting, but the homeowners were assured that there would be a second meeting to discuss the budget and the current bylaws, covenants, and rules. Shortly after the meeting, we received a bill for $230 in HOA dues. The board had hired a management company without any discussion, approved a budget, and was sending a letter that indicated you would be fined if you did not pay. I paid the dues expecting a meeting within the coming months. It's been roughly 6 months, and there's been no word from the HOA. There are no shared spaces, parks, clubhouse, playground, pool, parking, etc., so the dues seemed high. I figured this would be something I'd bring up at the second HOA meeting. The other day, I drove into the neighborhood, and there was a sign that said, "Happy Halloween, trick-or-treating hours, 5 to 8 p.m. only, HOA." That night, I stole the sign and repainted the hours to say TBD at next HOA meeting. I also put a note on the back that reminded them that they were supposed to discuss the rules and budget, but this was not a rule anyone had been informed about. A day or two later, the sign was gone, but I've yet to hear anything. Yesterday, I received the first email from the management company. I've left them voicemails in the past, but never would get a call back. They changed the parking rules outlined in the covenants and were now going to be enforced except for a few. They've chosen to ignore and not enforce the rule that limits more than 2 cars in the driveway. They are, however, enforcing the rule that prohibits parking on the street. They said you need board approval and guests can only stay 48 hours. They added that no vehicles can be parked in the yard, front or back. Several families like ours will park in the street and have been since we moved in. We have 4 cars and 2 are kept in the garage. Update. I've decided enough is enough, and I'm drafting several petitions that I'll be mailing to every homeowner. One is to call for a meeting to discuss these issues. The other is calling for the HOA to be dissolved. I intend to include my home address on a stamped envelope for other homeowners to send back the signed petitions. I'll also be inviting them to stop by my home for coffee and a friendly discussion of their concerns with the HOA. Ultimately, I hope to get 2/3 or more people willing to dissolve the HOA, but I'm expecting at least 3/4 to agree to call another meeting to discuss the changes that are being made without any input from the homeowners. Update 2. I started a petition to remove the current old man and put me in his place. I outlined the real changes I wanted to make, and every week I spent an hour or 2 on what could be improved, not what could be changed. After that, I became the head of the HOA, and the problems went away. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.